right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Shannon McLay. Hey, Shannon. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, I'm Shannon McLay, the founder and CEO of Financial Gym. I am a 20 plus year financial services industry vet, and the last 10 of which have been spent building the Financial Gym, which was my idea when I was a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. I wanted to create a business for people who didn't have 250,000 in assets, but wanted to speak to a human being and have financial planning services. So that was 10 years ago, and lots happened since then.
Wow. Can you walk us through kind of like your how you got involved in the industry to start, and then
Yeah.
how you saw this need for the financial gym?
Yeah, I originally decided to become a financial advisor after that 10 years working in investment banking and feeling like I needed a financial planner in my life. I was 30-ish at the time and married with a child and thinking about buying a home and kind of all the reasons why people would think I need somebody to help with the finances. And was working for Merrill Lynch at the time on the investment banking side and meeting Merrill Lynch financial advisors. And I just kind of felt like they all looked and felt the same and didn't really trust any of them to guide my financial life. And I thought, if you can't beat them, join them. So I became a Merrill Lynch financial advisor, and you had to work with me there, you had to have 250,000 in assets. So I laugh all the time thinking about the advice I got from my mentor, and I always say mentor in air quotes because I really didn't take any of his advice. But one of the things he said to me in the early days, he said, "Pre-screen all your calls, Shannon, and make sure that people have money because they won't even count if they don't have money. So don't even waste your time." And I just remember hearing that and thinking, I really don't feel comfortable asking people how much money they have in the bank before we had coffee. Like, I just some people can do that, and that's great. That's not something I felt comfortable with. So was one of those early advisors who took every meeting. So if somebody said, I want a financial planner, a financial advisor, I was like, let's meet, let's have coffee, let's talk. And one of those first meetings was a woman who started out saying, and it was almost like a movie. She's like, I have 250,000. And I'm like, great. And she's like, of student loan debt. And I was like, other side of the balance sheet. Like, and then she's like, and I make $50,000 a year and not the six-figure law job that my law school told me I would have. And then she said, and I just feel unlovable. Who would want to marry me with all this debt? And it was so much to unpack in a first meeting. I just met this woman. I got a lot of information. And I knew as she was telling me her story that nothing I had at Merrill Lynch was going to help this person. Like, if I did we called them wealth management proposals in our system. And I said, it's just going to look ugly. All the Monte Carlo syndromes are going to variations are going to tell her she can never retire. So I didn't want to give that to her. And I was like, but I wanted to help her. So I started kind of doing these things on the side. And I tell people became the worst financial advisor ever because I started to love my pro bono clients more than my clients who had wealth because they really needed the help and they wanted to pay me to do it. I just didn't have a way to take their money. And it was after I had a week of my life where I was helping, I had started out with a quarterly review with a couple that had over $1 million with me. And we're going through the returns, and if their portfolio was down 3%. And it was like the end of the world to them, right? It was like, how are the kids going to go to college? What's going to happen now? They were freaking out. And I just remember sitting there feeling like these are not big things. Like, the market's down 6%. You guys are only down 3. And they were having such a reaction. And I tell people I spent an hour of my life making them feel better about being a little less rich, and it just felt really soul sucking. But I was like, I guess it's part of my job. And then 2 days later, I did a plan for a woman, a pro bono client, and laid out just like we do at Financial Gym. Here's how much you should save. Here's how you handle student loan debt. Here's what you do with the credit cards. And here's how we plan for retirement. And at the end of the meeting, she said, you're saving my life, right? And I was like, this meeting feels so much better than that other meeting. And I really think I am saving her life. So it's amazing that a financial plan can save somebody's life. At the same time, I was on a weight loss journey. And I just remember feeling like there's so many places I could go to get physically healthy once I decided to go on the journey. But if people want to get financially healthy, where do they go? Where do I send these pro bono clients to who want to work on their finances? And at Merrill, I just said, where's the place I can send these people to? Because they want to pay, they want to work with somebody. And I just thought if you want to get financially healthy, you would go to a financial gym. So that was 10 years ago now. And at the time, I was like, it's like H&R Block, but fun and cool. And advisors are trainers and they wear jeans and t-shirts. And I saw it very clearly. All of a sudden it just came to me. And that was again 10 years ago. We did have locations. We did have a few locations across the country that we had to close during the pandemic. Now we operate 100% virtually. But at this point, we've worked with over 14,000 people in all 50 states and all financial shapes and sizes. And I always say the problems are the same, the zeros are different. So we have clients come to us with $40 in the bank and they're like, I'm concerned about running out of money. We have clients who've come to us for plans, they have $40 million and multiple advisors and they're concerned about running out of money. So we've seen it all at this point, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's incredible. You saw an industry that has some issues
Mm-hmm.
and just went with your gut and created a business that makes you happy and helps a lot of your clients. It helps
Yeah.
a ton of people.
I think what's exciting is when I was an advisor at Merrill Lynch, and most advisors, your job is to move somebody from another advisor, find the wealth that already exists, and manage the wealth, or transfer the wealth to, you as an advisor from another advisor or whatever. And what's been really interesting over the last 10 years is helping people build wealth, being on the wealth building side of it, very intimately involved. We have a number of clients who are now first generation wealth holders, and they've course corrected their lives from being negative net worth when they start with us 2 or 3 years ago to now hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've had clients get to over the millions in, over the last few years. And that's exciting for us. I think everybody comes into this business and industry for a lot of different reasons. And I think for me and the team at the gym, we're really motivated and excited about being on the early stages of people's, wealth journeys, from the negative to the positive. That's the meaningful work we like doing.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So like when did you realize you had a business here? Because
Yeah.
obviously like helping people, like this is great, I would love to do this in my free time, but I have bills to pay, possibly kids to feed. When were you
Yeah.
like, no, there's traction this is a business?
Yeah. What's funny is I tell people, because you can imagine I get asked a lot about, should I start a business, or I'm thinking about starting a business. And I tell people there's two good ways to do it. One is the right way and one was my way, which is also right. But then I'll get to the second. But the right way is you have, multiple years of savings and, you can pay yourself and not worry about the business and, all your debts are paid off and, all that stuff. Then there's the way I did it, which was I had this idea and I literally could not sleep at night. I literally couldn't sleep at night because I was like, no one else is going to do this. I could see it very clearly. I know how to do this, so I'm going to do it, even though I knew nothing about starting a business or anything like that. That passion kind of drove me. And I tell people, if you've got that level of passion, you're going to be able to weather the roller coaster ride of an entrepreneur because it's a very extreme roller coaster. And if you're not really psyched to be on that roller coaster, then it's going to be really uncomfortable. So when I left Merrill, really didn't know what I had. I just knew I had to start this thing. And I had to leave Merrill because I couldn't have the side business. It did not get approved from my compliance officer. So I said, yeah, shocking, right? As you can imagine, I had a really rough time with my compliance officer on a lot of things. But mostly marketing. But especially at Merrill Lynch, it was like you have to stay in a box. So I left and I gave myself 2 years. I said, because my securities licenses were going to expire, and B, I was like, let's see what I can do. And over those 2 years, it was growing, and I was actually getting to the point where I had like a handful of clients, but I was like, and they were getting really great results, and they were staying with me, and all those good things. But I was like, I don't know if it's going to be enough. And I remember I had a woman who wanted to join, and At the time when she joined, I was charging like $1,000 a year. I was charging $250 a quarter to meet with people. And she said, I found out you through a friend. Can you help me? And I was thinking about throwing in the towel and going back to Merrill Lynch. So I said, it's going to be $2,500, so I was charging 1,000. I increased my rate, and she was like, okay, like I'll pay that. And I just remember thinking, Merrill Lynch values a $250,000 client. We're charging 1% to manage their fees. So that's 2,500 a year is what Merrill values. But I can get that 2,500 from somebody who doesn't necessarily have to have the 250,000 in assets, but I can generate that kind of what Merrill Lynch would value in a client. I thought there's something here. So almost right after I took on that client, I had a meeting with a former manager of mine from Merrill Lynch, and he was just laid off. And he said, he got a severance package, and I was telling him what I was doing. We're updating a few things. And he said, how do you think I should, how do you think I should invest this severance? What do you think I should put it in? And I said, I think you should invest in a small financial services company that's about to run out of money. And he said, you're right, I should. And that was my first $100,000 check um, for the gym. And that's another lesson I give to people is like, never underestimate the value of your network. He was my manager from my previous job on the commercial bank, and he had been my manager and mentor for 9 years before we even had this cup of coffee, like in a whole different role. But because he knew my work ethic, he knew what I was building. I'd talked to him about this all along. It was an easy choice for him to make because he already knew me. And I've raised $10.9 million to date, and most of it has come from people within the network. So, and it's also how you build an advisory business is, it's your network of people, and you should be the trusted person. And I always tell people, and we have this at the gym too. I tell my trainers all the time, I'm like, if we just take care of our clients really well, and that's how you take care of your network, put good out there, take care of people. If we take care of our clients, they're going to be our salespeople. They're going to be out there telling their friends and family. I tell this to other, people who are thinking about going into financial advisory, financial planning. I'm like, it's all about relationship. It's a very intimate job that we have as advisors where money is still a very taboo topic. And we always joke at the gym, we say people are more comfortable getting physically naked with somebody than financially naked because you can hide that. And so what we're asking in a financial planning meeting, in our first meetings with clients, we're asking them to get financially naked with us. We're asking them to share all these details with us. Meanwhile, we're staying fully clothed, right? So it's a very intimate relationship we have. And I think, half the key to doing this job well is understanding that it's a privilege that people are sharing with us all of that uncomfortable stuff that sometimes they don't, other people don't even know. And that we get to be on this journey with them in, an area that they're not talking about with other people. I went to one of my clients' weddings, and it was a vow renewal ceremony, and it was me and family. Like, it was all family. And I was sitting at a table with family, and they were like, who are you? And why are you here? And I was like, I'm their financial advisor. You know, and I kind of laughed to myself thinking, I think I'm the only person who really could be here. I know them so intimately. I know them more intimately than anybody in this room. And the kids that were there, and I'm like, I know how much is in that child's 529, and I know who's gonna get who's in the will because I helped them, find the lawyer who will construct the will. So, it's the greatest job ever, I tell people. But, it's a lot of trust and trust building and, relationship building and networking and all that.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. I definitely want to talk more about like who your ideal client is and how you find and serve them.
Mhm.
But I have to touch on something earlier. Your story of creating a business, like I identify with that full force. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I just know that I have to,
Mhm.
and I don't care. This is just what I need to do. And I
Yeah.
was hanging out with my dad, my uncle, my cousin, and my other cousin, and we realized that all of us were entrepreneurs. None of us had realized that. Like, we all like quit our
Yeah.
jobs as nurses or, you know, whatever, and started our own businesses. So I'm like, is this genetic? Like, is this just in our DNA? It's just like, nope, you just got to do your own thing. You're relatively unemployable. You have to figure it out. What's your, I know this is kind of outside the realm of.
No, I think some of it is genetic because you see other people doing it. It's not for the weak of heart starting a business. And it's funny because you said I have to do it. I felt the same way. But when we have clients where we're talking to about this, it's funny when I see so much hesitation, like, "Oh, I don't know, and I'm concerned, and what about our finances, and what about the kids?" And I'm like, "Then don't do this." Like, because none of those thoughts came into my brain. They did, I mean, I do have a 17-year-old son. I did think about his future, but I just knew, that I had to do it, and there was no other real rhyme or reason, and I think that's most entrepreneurs have that kind of experience, but I think it helps when you see other people do it because, and we coach clients on this all the time too, because we see it so much fear in starting a business, and I'm like, "Well, if you're gonna be afraid, then don't get on this roller coaster because you're not gonna like it, right?" It's not because it's not all sunshine and Skittles, and not everything's not gonna go your way. You become a problem solver in so many different ways, but what we tell clients too is like, what's the worst that can happen? And I always say this all the time about money to people because they get so wrapped up in money and so emotionally tied to their financial situation or their choices. And I always say, everything you do financially is fixable. Everything, including spending all your money trying to build a business or going through your retirement account because whatever, or not having enough saved or picking the wrong investment and it, sinks 25%. Everything is fixable. It's just a matter of how much fixing we have to do. Like when we're talking about money, it's not life or death. People give it that much weight, but it's like, all right, so you lost 25%. So we need to either it's going to be a good bet and we need to put more money in that holding because usually the thing that sinks you the most is the thing that's going to come out of it. Or, we write it off. I had a couple who started with me 7 years ago. They started with me because he invested most of their IRAs and some of their brokerage assets into a penny stock that he was just convinced was, going to take off. PS, it didn't. Company went bankrupt, and so went a bunch of their IRAs, their retirement accounts. So he, for the longest time, was not allowed to even look at their investment portfolios. And I'm really proud of this couple because they made it through. Some couples, I was like, and I've told them, like, you guys could have gotten divorced after that. That's a big thing. But PS 7 years later, they are way beyond that, what they lost, and then some. They had to get a little more subconscious about saving more and making some other lifestyle choices or whatever. But within 7 years, that I'm just going to say mistake or that choice is gone. So we have clients who filed for bankruptcy. Well, in 7 years, that's going to be off your credit report. It's like, it was going to be like it never happened. As long as you learn, that's the important thing with money is like, you're going to have some painful lessons, but as long as you learn from them, then you can fix everything. But, but going into becoming an entrepreneur, though, I think a lot of people, going back to your question, Chris, I think a lot of people just have so much fear over what it's going to do to them financially. And when I see that kind of level of fear, I'm like, I'm not sure this is the right path for you because it doesn't get easier.
Yeah.
Just more challenges.
And I think, for the most part, the only financial advisors we interview on this are independent because, the FAs at Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, they're not allowed to talk anywhere.
Yeah.
They're basically not allowed to market themselves. And I didn't know that until a couple of years ago. And I was just like, how do you survive? Like, what do you do to market? And I'm just like, how much worse could being independent be? Like,
no, well, that's how I felt. So I wanted to create a newsletter amongst my clients when I was at Merrill Lynch. And I was like, I want to write it up. I wanted to call it Financially Blonde because I was like, I felt a lot like the movie Legally Blonde with Elle Woods because I was the only female new advisor in my group and I have blonde hair and I have a pink calculator. Yeah. And I was like, I wanted to make that newsletter and do that name. So I tell my compliance officer, he was like, no way. And I was like, come on. He's like, Merrill Lynch produces a monthly newsletter. And I'm like, everybody's sending that. That is so not, unique. And I said, I said, can I just do one? He's like, okay, do one. Let's see. It got ripped apart so much that I said, forget it. Like, it's not even worth it. And this is a newsletter that could have been compliance reviewed, could have gone through. And it was just so much work that I said, forget it. So of course, the first thing when I quit Merrill Lynch is I started my blog and I called it Financially Blonde. And that was what I did. And it was like my newsletter. And I was, that was how I started building my practice, it was in blogging and getting, my information out there. And yeah, I don't know how people can build a practice without letting people know that you're out there building a practice.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Any advice for financial advisors working at a big wirehouse who are considering going independent?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of independent. I'm a huge fan of wirehouses for training because I do
Hmm.
think, and I tell people, I said, if you can get into a training program, the training program at Merrill Lynch was really outstanding. I got a solid foundation. I had the support I needed, whether it was like getting, my 65 and the insurance license and all that. Plus they bring in, industry experts and a lot of training and coaching. I think I tell people that's a really good place to start as far as like education. But as far as building and growing your business, it's not going to happen in those places. It really has to be on your own for you to own the work you're doing. And the best thing about it now versus 10 years ago when I left, it's actually really relatively easy to start an RIA on your own. There's so many, not RIA in the boxes, but there's so many companies and programs that make it cost effective and affordable to start your practice. And then as you grow, you can add on, other resources. But I think now there's just so many tools. And I mean, between software and, and the tech side of it, it's all come so far. I think the technology outside of wirehouses is way better than the technology in them, because it's very slow moving in-house in those places. So I just think it's not hard. I mean, it's work, but I think you could do it much easier now than even 10 years ago. So it's like, why? And I remember when I left Merrill Lynch 10 years ago, I had guys tell me, good luck building a brand without the Merrill Lynch, name. And I was like, I think I'm going to build a brand because I'm not the Merrill Lynch name. I feel like, so thank you, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
leaving. So yeah.
I don't, I I think people will notice me as opposed to these thousands of people using the same brand that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
just very
And
vanilla.
I think people want to support an individual more so than they want to support Merrill Lynch,
Hmm.
especially now in the last like few years. I think people rather work with independent advisors.
Yeah, well, I mean, they just have access to more options for you as well, like
Yeah. And they're not
stocks and
beholden.
bond. Hope you like stocks and bonds if you're working in a warehouse.
Yeah. Or Merrill Lynch products or, uh market equity linked notes that they're selling like crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think you working with an independent advisor too, you really know they're independent because they're not pushing any one, firm or ETF company or what have you because they're on their own.
Right,
So I feel
right.
like the advice is even more trusted than if it's
Yeah,
a
no,
bigger firm.
that's a great point. Um, I could complain about wirehouses for the rest of the day, but we'll talk about more productive things. Um, so when you're starting a business, it's often best to figure out like a niche or like a type of person or group of people that you possibly identify with or just feel you can serve the best. How did you find your niche? How did you find your ideal client, and why did you decide on them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I felt like it was easy to find my people because they were people who had less than 250,000 in assets, which is the majority of Americans. So
Yeah, yeah.
I've got a really big addressable market here. But I did, as we started building the gym, realize that we definitely attract females predominantly, although 65% of our population is female, 35% are men. So we have both,
Are you
but
saying our full population or financial gym?
financial gym population
Financial gym. Got it.
is skewed toward female clients. But we tend to attract younger, Gen Z, millennial clients. And that's a large part of my team and what they look like. So, I think a lot of times it's serving, the people who look and feel like you, because again, money's really personal and people want to find that person who understands it. And that was something we learned as we were adding teammates to the gym. We were seeing that as we're adding, diverse teammates, we were getting a more diverse client base too, because it was like, oh, I see I'd like to work with that person. I'd like to work with that person. And I think, you know, really you're going to attract people that are like you or have the same ethos or beliefs that you do. And as long as it's very clear and you're very clear of how you want to work with clients and the type of clients you work, they're going to find you. We used to have a joke at Merrill Lynch. We were like, uh advisors and their clients, it's almost like a match made in heaven. Like we would see some really wacky advisors and you're like, how does that person even have any clients? And then you meet their clients and they were equally as wacky as the advisor and you're like, oh, okay, somebody for everybody, and there is. And I say that there is somebody for everybody in financial planning. So you'll find your people and your clients, and as long as you understand you and the type of clients you want to serve and you can communicate that, they'll find you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I could definitely ask you questions for the rest of the afternoon. So we'll have to have you back on another time. My final question for you is, what are you working towards?
I'm working toward financial wellness for everyone. And financial wellness looks different, but it is such a problem in the United States. There's only 38% of the population is considered financially well. So there is a lot of financial healthiness, and it's a lot of misinformation and guidance or lack of guidance. And so that's our mission at the gym, is really to get people financially healthy, on the path to financial health and wellness, and got a lot of work ahead. So I'll be busy for a while.
Yes, that is a big goal, and I and
Mhm.
I love it and fully support you. And I think you're satisfying that part of you that felt so good, with your pro bono clients. You made a whole business out of that.
Man,
That's a
whole
beautiful
business.
thing. So congratulations and thank you for doing that. Where can our audience find out more about you and all of the amazing things you're working on?
Yeah, they can go to financialgym.com for information, education, free, a lot of free resources we have for people. And also on Instagram, we're at the Financial Gym. Instagram and TikTok, you can find us at the Financial Gym. Those are the two social platforms we're the most active on.
Hmm. Awesome. And we will link to those in the show notes. Shannon, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. The time just fell off the clock today. I'm normally much better about this.
Thanks,
But
Chris.
yeah, we'll have to have you on again soon. Have a great day.